Hey drillers, my name is Adam Jupe. I'm an 8th degree black sling and the founder of the Drill Dojo, and I'll be your guide all the way through the dojo from white sling up to black sling dawn level. Congratulations on making the decision to join the dojo and take your first step into rifle flow exhibition drill. This video will be talking about how you can earn your white sling certification, and it'll be done in two parts. The first part will be a video overview of how I would perform the video requirements for earning my white sling certification. And the second part will be addressing what things I'm looking for, so that if you have a different style or way of doing things for your team or as an individual, I want you to know that's completely okay, but there are some things that I do look for. We'll begin with the video overview. If I were to earn my white sling certification, this is what it would look like. The position of attention. The position of present arms. The position of right shoulder arms. Port spin. Single spin. At this point, you can submit this video and be completely qualified. It is customary and recommended that you present arms. There's no real reason why you should or shouldn't, but we will discuss that in the second part of this video as to what that signifies and what that means. So let's talk about the positions. The first position is going to be the position of attention, and I'm going to discuss the various components as far as the military standard way for the United States of America, and then I'll discuss a little bit on what I'm looking for and how it can vary and what I've seen in the past. So the first thing you're going to want to look for is that your feet will have your heels touching, your feet separated, forming a V shape at a roughly 45-degree gap. All right, there's some variance where I'll never know if it's 45 degrees, but it should be enough that someone could stick their foot in there and get reasonably far. Next, you'll look over to your right foot and you'll see that the toe of your shoe in the front of the rifle will be pretty much level with one another. That should be pretty standard. Every time you go from like port to order, that's where it's going to end up, right there, level with the front of your shoe. That's going to take a lot of practice, so no worries. Now, moving up, my legs are straight, my body is straight, all the way up to my shoulders. This is the next key component. My shoulders are pulled back. Okay, so a lot of people hunch over, a lot of people do this. If you do a lot of weightlifting, you might do this. Make a conscious effort to stand up as straight as you can. Don't try and overarch. I won't take a video and not certify it for it, but just make it look tall, strong presence. Moving out, let's talk about the left arm. Your left arm will be balled into, a lot of people say a fist, but it's more like a sign language A. Your thumb will come to the knuckle of your pointer finger. And there should be no gaps on the back side. A lot of people do all of this and then leave a big gap in their hand. It should be very tight, very together, your knuckles flush and even, and your hand nice and rounded. And that's going to be put into your side. Now, your thumb will be straight along the seam of your pants. But that's not it, right? A lot of people hear that and they go, okay, just like that, right? And that's most of it. But what you're really looking for is you're going to pull your hand back, and you're going to pull your pinky back to your pants. Now all your knuckles will be flush with your leg, and you'll have a much straighter, it'll naturally pull your shoulder back, it'll naturally keep it in. It's going to look a lot cleaner. On the other side, the rifle will be gently pulled back. You'll notice that the butt comes off the ground just a little bit, depending on your foot size. That's fine. What you're really looking for is that this upper handguard and this stock are going to be straight up and down along the seam of your pants. So that should overlap pretty well. Your hands will be extended with all your fingers together. So don't try and, a lot of people move their fingers apart and go like this, and they keep it just steady in there. It should be a little bit uncomfortable after a while because it's going to be a very rigid position for you to be in that you're not used to. The arm should be straight with a natural bend here. A lot of people here straight and they go all the way down here. That's not going to look right. A lot of people hear natural bend and they go up here, and that's not going to look right. So find that nice spot. If you're shorter, your hand will go a little bit further down, and if you're taller, your hand will go a little bit higher. For me, it's really nice because my fingers will touch the upper sling swivel, and I'll know I have a nice bend in my arm. So look for those checkpoints. Where, if you're shorter, where on your hand should you be touching the upper sling swivel? And if you're taller, you got to get used to that feeling of slight bend here. The last component is going to be the face. So much of human expression and emotion comes from the face, and in drill, we're generally not looking for that, right? So you're going to want to keep your chin level to the ground. Don't look too high, and don't look down at the ground. Nice and level. Your eyes will be locked straight. Even when you're spinning, you shouldn't be moving your eyes or head very often, especially even to look at the rifle. So that's the American military standard way of doing things. JROTC generally uses that across all military branches. That being said, the Drill Dojo services service drill teams from the United States, foreign drill teams, and individuals and winter guard people. Anyone from any spinning background can join the dojo, and it doesn't have to be the American military standard way. For example, I am a former member of the United States Coast Guard Ceremonial Honor Guard, and all honor guards have a different position of attention than the American military standard way of drilling, even though they are the American military standard for drillers, right? So service drill teams have no gap in their feet. They'll put their feet side by side and together. Their right hand will be the same with the rifle straight down and their fingers extended and joined. But their left hand will be what's called a bear claw position, where this first knuckle extends down into a clean, straight position. The thumb is still tucked into the side. The fingers are still pressed against the seam of your pants and the rest of your leg. But yeah, it's a different position to be in, and it's completely acceptable. If that's your style, then 100% go for it. There's also certain teams or certain people that will have their position of attention with their legs extended. Okay, looks weird from an American military standard point of view for doing some of the positions, but it's not wrong. As if that's your way of doing them, that's your way of doing things. There are some teams that spin with their hand here and stand at attention like that. That's also completely acceptable. The thing I'm looking for is that you have a way of standing that serves as a root and a base for your tricks. The second position is going to be present arms. The easiest way to do it is the American military standard, where you go to port and you pop the rifle down. Have a checkpoint. My checkpoint's going to be my thumb at the highest point of the metal and the lowest point of the plastic. Fingers together, no gaps. A lot of people put gaps here. Face a mirror if you can. Have no gaps in those fingers. And you grip the small of the stock. Rifle should be straight up and down, about 4 inches away from your stomach, depending on your body type. And the rifle should be straight up and down, so that if a line was drawn, and again, straight up and down, refers to this part of the barrel to the small of the stock. The rifle is going to kink outwards a little bit. So if you think straight up and down is tip of the barrel to tip of the butt, you're going to end up angled like this. So what it is that you're not going to worry about where this stock comes from, but it's going to be barrel down the line, and this line defines straight up and down or not. And generally, it's going to be right in between your eyes here, in line with your nose, and the upper band is going to be intersecting your eyes. But if you're a little bit taller, it might be this little band up here, the front sight. That being said, the point of present arms is to show respect. It is the military way of bowing, right? So in martial arts, where the whole body is the weapon, they bow and they leave themselves a little bit vulnerable as a show of trust and respect. Present arms is exactly the same thing, where the rifle is in a non-fireable position. The hand is not wrapped into the trigger or anything. It's a very technically uncomfortable position to be in that leaves the body vulnerable as a sign of respect for whoever it is. So as you go through the dojo, bowing is not, there's no martial arts technique that you're going to knock someone out by bowing, right? It's a pure show and sign of respect. And the drill dojo operates in much the same way. So when you do a test out, it's recommended but not required that you present arms before and after your test out, because you are bowing to enter and bowing to leave as a show of respect. It's also very important if you decide to go and do competitions as a soloist. Having a position of present arms is important for reporting in and reporting out. So philosophically, it's the same thing, and it's the same component that you'll need for that. I don't mind if you have exhibition present arms, right? If you go here and you do the Marine Corps salute, absolutely. Submit it for your white sling certification. Exhibition salutes, completely okay. What I'm looking for is some obvious position where it's a show of respect. It's a show of present arms. It can be fancy. It can be regulation. It could be holding the rifle in front of you and saluting, if that's your style. I do recommend using the rifle, but I'm not going to take credit off for individual style. So, yeah, you can be creative. I recommend not, just because, it's the same. People understand and can visibly recognize the standard present arms. So if you're in a different country, use the one that you would use to present arms for your service manual for your country. If you're in America, I would recommend using the one that regulation that you use at your JRTC unit. The third position is right shoulder arms. All I'm looking for is the position where the rifle is on your shoulder, touching your shoulder, or controlled by the right hand by your shoulder. The reason this is important is that this position has a lot of overlap with tricks that you'll encounter later on, such as a right shoulder toss. Okay? Having that core component, knowing what a right shoulder is, even if it's here, so you can toss it up and be able to get those tricks and those spins, is going to be a core requirement of the dojo for you to be able to successfully complete some of these curriculums. Now, proper American military style will have your shoulder and your elbow in a straight line down to the ground, so it should be all the way straight. Basically, if you extended an imaginary line, it would intersect with, or not, like overlap, the seam of your pants. Then there's a 90-degree cut in your arm, and the rifle will pop out at a roughly 45-degree angle to the rest of your body. From the front, draw a straight line from the crook of your shoulder out, and that's going to be where your hand needs to lay, so that the rifle is straight behind you. A common mistake is that people leave their hand a little out here, or they keep their hand in line with the outside of their shoulder. The rifle's going to crook in this way. If you go in too far and overcompensate, it crooks out that way. This line here is going to be your best friend for right shoulder arms. If you're doing exhibition drill, a common exhibition manual, in addition to the regular one, is out here. This allows the sling to come out if you don't tape down your sling like I don't. It's going to be this straight up and down with this line here. A common mistake here, or on all right shoulders, really, is that the elbow pops out. Make sure the elbow is almost uncomfortably tight as it's pressed against your side. Even out here, common mistake is to have your elbow out. Unless that's your team manual, most of the time it's going to be better to have it tightly tucked in. This is going to feel really uncomfortable, but it looks a lot better than anything out here. Again, the core component, if it's out here, whatever it is, you should be able to sustain it for a while. But you're moving into right shoulder maneuvers. So the only thing I'm looking for is having the rifle on the right side of your body in such a manner that you will be able to throw it. I recommend getting in the habit now of supporting the bottom of the rifle with these 3 fingers and getting that commonly referred to as like an OK sign, but really it's just moving your thumb until it touches your pointer finger on kind of the outside of the rifle. My pointer finger, I can remove it and you'd be able to see this cusp here. And when it's in position, I hide it. This is going to create a lot of like pullback for some of these tosses. So getting into that habit early is not only good practice and good form, but it's going to serve you well later on. Now let's talk about the port spin, which is probably going to be your first spin. They're going to be at the port position. Your hand will come on the inside. Rotate the rifle in a counterclockwise direction from your point of view. The rifle is going to fall, sling slide to the ground before coming back up and grabbing at this position. So in order to learn this trick, best practice is to have a driller. So if you're following along, go ahead and follow these instructions and you'll be able to get a port spin in no time. So you're standing here at port arms. Rifle straight up and down. Remember that's barrel all the way down. Straight up and down refers to this line on your stock. So you're standing at port, the rifle straight up and down. Release your right hand, hold it out to your side for a second. That way you can locate your right hand where this spin happens from. Now, as your hand's over, turn your palm so that it's facing the sky, right? Touching the chin. If you were like flipping a table or something, that's where it needs to be. And your hand's going to be in front of your belly button, close to your side, so you can grab. Your thumb's going to come to the outside and it's going to split from your hands. So that way you can grab this as it falls, right? Another way to think of it is you're taking a bow, right? If you were to take a bow, your palm's going to be facing the sky. That's where your hand needs to be. Now, you're going to pretty much let go with your left hand and the rifle will fall, and you got to trust yourself to catch it. So let go with your left hand, and as the rifle comes down, grab the rifle with your right hand, and you'll be able to swing it back up. Getting used to that momentum to make it clean is going to help a lot. Now, a couple of checkpoints. If you're doing this as a team, it's very important to have standard ways of holding the rifle so that everyone's together. My checkpoint's going to be my pinky touching the plastic and the metal. So it overlaps that. And when I come back to port, every time my pinky should be touching that plastic and metal. Another really, really nice thing that most people miss, and that you'll be able to pass qualification for, but you should know about, is that when your left hand lets go, it should be pinned at your side. So as the rifle falls, you should be pinning that hand every single time as it turns in front of you. So you have enough time to, as it falls, your left hand falls with, and then bring it back up for that grab. Anytime a hand is not in use, it's good practice in rifle flow exhibition drill to pin it by your side. So getting into that habit now is a good idea. If you submit and you take a while to set up and your hand's up here and you're waiting for it, that's fine. I'm not going to dock you. As far as I'm concerned, that's personal style and personal preference. Not a big deal. But again, think about your hand pins and where they go, and you will be very successful later on when your submission videos are graded from red sling and up. So yeah, port spin is your first counterclockwise spin, and it forms the basis of all counterclockwise spins. So rising sun, a lot of times you'll move into that backy forthy there in the next curriculum, but if you go from a port spin, you can hit that rising sun component. That port spin forms the basis of all of those things. So you're going to want to get used to having the rifle spin in that clockwise direction by doing port spin. The last trick, and often the hardest, is going to be the single spin, also sometimes called the left hand spin. So this is one of those tricks that it's like, it's easy to get and hard to master. So performing a single spin involves a couple of components that are very, very minute. So when you're learning a single spin, right, I usually break it down for new drillers in a couple of different ways before getting them to do good technique. The first thing I'm going to have them do, so if you're following along, do this exercise with me. Make sure you're in a space where you can drop and it's not going to be a big deal. You're going to move your left hand and your pointer finger is going to be touching the bottom of the sling swivel here. The rifle is going to be straight up and down. And you're going to let go with your right hand. Now, the rifle's going to swing. And what I want you to do is I want you to just swing with the rifle. Let it go, like let it do its thing. Feel the rifle as it moves around. And I want you to make this as comfortable on yourself as possible. And the way I want you to do that is by moving your hand and elbow to get the rifle to stay relatively in front of your body. And you're able to get a lot of, let's say, spin or rotation out of it, even though you haven't let go yet. So now that you got used to how this is supposed to feel and what your hand is supposed to do, this C motion with your hand, okay, as it comes around, there's actual up and down motion to it, right? Now you need to know where the rifle's going to let go, where you need to let go of the rifle. So there's a mental block for letting go the first time, so make sure you're in a space where dropping is not going to be a problem, okay? And the secret to letting go is right around here. As the rifle crosses this flat against the ground, there's no stopping it, essentially. As long as it has momentum to it, the rifle will continue to shoot in a tangential way. So if this is creating a circle and the tangent is wherever the flat of the butt is, that's where the rifle's going to go. So if you're out here, wherever the butt points, the rifle goes. So it's going to go a little bit in and a little bit up, which is exactly what you want for the rifle to do. So you're going to swing it, and you're going to count to 3, and on 3, you're going to let go. And when you let go, the rifle needs to be past flat with the ground. So it needs to be just a little bit slanted upwards. Now, there's going to be a couple of problems most drillers run into. So let's do a little bit of troubleshooting, right? So the first thing I run into is that the rifle stays down here, right? So if your rifle comes here and it's very awkward to finish the spin, the problem's going to be that you're not lifting your hand up and over enough. So what's going to make this easier is overcompensating, like overdoing it. Bring your hand higher and further over than you think is necessary, and you're going to be able to start honing it in to directly in front of you. So that's going to be first thing. If it's too low, bring your hand higher and over, and honestly try and release it over here, and your brain will kind of compensate back towards the middle. Another common thing is going to be that where it's super awkward, your elbow has to come out really far, and it just doesn't seem to have any sort of momentum to it. So what the problem is here is that your hand has drifted to too low. And if you move too low, you can try the swinging exercise again and see if you can get the rifle with any sort of momentum to be in a good, proper spinning position. It's going to be 10 times harder, especially if your hand is like below the balance. It's pretty much impossible. So if you're running into the problem where there's no momentum and it's really hard to get it around, you got to move your hand higher until your pointer finger is touching the bottom part of the lower swing swivel, if you have one, attached to your rifle. And then go back to those swinging drills so you can feel how much further you can get with it and it comes back to center. Another common problem is that your hand's in the right place, but you're still not getting any momentum from it, right? So you're just kind of popping and it's still not going anywhere. The trick for this one is that your right hand needs to give it just a little bit of energy. So as you're in this position, we previously have masked your right hand's component by doing swinging motions, right? Now you're going to put that energy into it with your right hand by pushing. Just with one finger you can get the energy. Don't overdo it, right? Just one finger's worth will get you around to exactly where you need to be. So if you're running into that problem, it's your right hand not adding anything to it. Let's see. There's another problem a lot of drillers have where the rifle doesn't come back straight. It torques in the air and they catch it backwards. That's going to be a planing issue. That's just going to take a lot of practice to get used to. Basically, your hand isn't wrapped around properly. Maybe it's too little here, and as you spin around, it kind of just pops in a different direction. Make sure the rifle is seated in, like, if you imagine you're holding a taco with the front fingers here, and one knuckle, maybe two, will be wrapped around all the way to the other side. And as it spins around, your thumb comes off the rifle just a little bit. So make sure you're not holding on to it too long, because that could cause that issue as well. Let's see. Another common issue is going to be that the rifle carries over, right? So if you're having this issue and the rifle swings too far and you're over adjusting, there are a couple things to do. The first one is going to be lifting weights. There's no other way around it. The stronger you are, the stronger that stop is. Now, if you need a quick fix, there is a bad habit you can get into. So you should know it's a bad habit, but it works. And the thing is, when you're getting ready to stop, you're actually going to stop it on this side of your body with your right hand. And as it swings, it's going to compensate right in front of your face, right? So if your problem is over here and it pops over here, well then if you stop over here, then by the time it's stopping, it's in front of your face. So you'll move your hand, your right hand, inside and up to the crease of your neck to grab here and pop it in front of your face. And it basically pops there. The problem with it is that if you're doing this with a team, your sound won't be together because you are making contact before anyone else. So it is technically a bad habit, but it is better to have a straight up and down stop and go back to port than it is to have that sound all together if you can't get it in the first place. So it's just a little technique to help solidify that up and down. Now the last component is going to be putting it all together. You have everything together, but it still doesn't look quite right, or it's still awkward. Now let's talk about how to get into the single spin position to start with. The first thing you're going to do, so you're at port, right? First thing you're going to do is basically drop the rifle a quarter of the way. And as it does, you'll notice I keep my hand in this position and slide it up the rifle to get to this position where my finger touches the sling swivel here, right? So 1/4 of the spin is going to be, 1/4 of the dip is going to be getting your left hand out by sliding it to where it needs to be. The second quarter of the dip is going to be moving your right hand up from the small of the stock to the big of the stock, to the meaty part. And so when you do this, the technique is going to be to slide your hand up until your palm is level with the butt of the rifle, and almost hidden by it, just about. And your pinky is going to be right flush with it. And this is going to give you that perfect spinning position to go. The last component you need to look at is making sure that this line is straight up and down, so the rifle is straight up and down, right? Because it's defined by the upper handguard and the stock and the line that they make. That's going to point directly towards the ground. What that's going to do is expose part of your face. You can see me talking here. So make sure you don't make the mistake of covering your mouth entirely, because you're going to over torque the rifle just a little bit. So proper checkpoint will be just about half of your mouth covered for most people, most body types. From there, you'll be in a good position to push, turn, stop, and go back to port, or move to whatever trick you're doing next. Thank you so much for learning and following along. When you're ready to film your submission, I recommend with a smartphone, but you can also use a camcorder or whatever you have, and sign up for a free account on YouTube and upload it to a YouTube account. If you don't want to share your video with anyone but me, set the video settings to unlisted. That's going to make sure it's not findable online unless someone has the link. Now, once you upload to YouTube, you'll get a link. You'll take that link and you'll go back over to drilldojo.com and you'll click on the white sling box or whatever sling you're qualifying for, and you'll scroll down until you find a section of the page called submissions. Take that YouTube link, copy and paste it or retype it into the URL box, and submit your name. However your name is spelled is going to be how it enters into the registry once you're qualified. And I will do a review of that video on a pass-fail basis within 1 to 7 days of submission.